everybody, welcome back to this new video about English literature. So today I'll answer many of your requests. I've been asked to talk about the Victorian Compromise. So in order to explain what the Victorian Compromise is, it is very important to understand the different mechanisms and aspects during the Victorian Age or Victorian era, if you prefer. We have already talked about that very widely and in detail, and you can find my video, or better the link to my video, here above. And so if you have any doubts or you want to go deeper into the aspects of this era, you just have to click on the link above and you'll have the full explanation. This is very important. Anyway, going back to our topic today, so we can say that first of all, in order to explain what the Victorian Compromise is, we have to remember that the Victorian Age was characterized by a very strong dualism, a contrast, a juxtaposition, between progress on one side and reforms, also social reforms, prosperity and industrialization, the development of this new upper middle class. On the other side, we have poverty, we have social unrest, we have we can say a penal code that is considered unjust. We have the exploitation of the lowest classes and especially of children, of women, pestilences. So there is this strong juxtaposition between these two aspects. We can say a contrast between rich and poor, it's very simple if we say it that way. And in fact, the Tory Prime Minister in 1845 wrote about these two nations, rich and poor, two nations inside the country. So the Victorian Compromise is a sort of a silent pact, between these two nations. We have to remember that the Victorian Age was characterized by moralists, moralists who, we can say they developed a sort of a code of values that was first meant for upper middle class or middle class in general, but then it had to be respected by everyone, by the whole society, including the lowest classes. This code of values, the strict moral code, the social pattern, included hard work, a very typical value of the Middle Age, also charity. Now, this is important, we'll see why. And respectability. So respectability in this case was, we can say, a mixture of morality and hypocrisy, because it was based on wealth and manners. And manners were often just a display of appearances. We remember Jane Austen, even if she didn't belong to the Middle Age, she belonged to the Romantic period, and she didn't talk about the middle class or upper middle class, but she talked about gentry, so the new landowners, the social class she belonged to. But anyway, she talked in advance, about these topics, about the strict moral code, about manners. In fact, her works are called novels of manners. And she also talked about marriage, because family, was the main cell of society. And during the Victorian Age especially, family was a sort of a mirror of society. Family had the same structure, that society represented, so it was like a sort of a microcosm that mirrored all the values and aspects and the hierarchies of society in general. It was a obviously a patriarchal society. The man was the head of the society, of family, we can say so, and women had to look after the household and children and so on. So in this period, so the period of the Victorian Compromise, which is more or less between 1832 and 1860, it was considered as a sort of a bridge between romanticism, ethical romanticism, and modernism, with a very strong influence from naturalism on one side and positivism on the other side. And we know that positivism was all about science, objectivity. So it was completely free from the spiritual authority of the church. And for this reason, we also have a strong satire concerning clergymen or church or Anglican church in general. Taboos and censorship were a great part of the cultural life during the Victorian Age. In fact, many works, and I'm also talking about classics, and I'm also talking about the Elizabethan works, Shakespearean works, were considered too strong, too erotic sometimes, and they were eliminated or considered taboo, or anyway changed in order to be more respectable and so more acceptable for society. So as far as the cultural element is concerned, we can say that this period is characterized by fiction, and some names are very common, like for example Dickens or the Sisters Bronte or Trollope or Thackeray. Disraeli, we already mentioned him today. And even poets like for example Wordsworth. Well, we know that Wordsworth together with Coleridge belonged to the first generation of Romantic poets, and he had this incredible vision of nature as a organic living whole, this sort of a pantheistic and spiritual view of nature. Now he has to change his perspective in order to belong to the Victorian Age, and for this reason he became more conservative and more moralistic. He talked, that during Romanticism nature was similar to God, and now he's talking about a God that is similar to the father of the patriarchal society, and so he's an extremely strict father. So there is a complete change in his view, in his poetic view. Well, back to the idea of the Romantic Compromise. The Romantic Compromise is then this sort of a silent, figurative pact between higher and lower classes. It's very simple if I say it that way. So it is a sort of a silent, figurative, metaphorical, pact, an agreement between these two parts of society that were on opposite sides, and honestly this great juxtaposition could be a danger for society. It was sort of a unexploded bomb that could, we can say, ruin and change and move everything very quickly. So this is why this Victorian Compromise silently developed, sort of a pact. And the pact meant that the middle class, upper middle class, rich people anyway, had to give small help, for the poor, And on the other side, the lowest classes, you can say, supported the institutions, and supporting the institutions also meant supporting the privileges of the rich people, okay, of the upper middle class. So, as I said before, there were social unrest, but there wasn't a general revolutionary intent, okay, because of this silent pact. So we can say that the lowest classes accepted, or generally accepted, the structure of society itself. Then we have unrest, obviously there are tensions and many other unpleasant things, but on the, say, talking in general, they accepted the situation. We can say that even if it started for a quite, say, moralistic idea, and we could say that there was a great amount of hypocrisy in this pact, but something very good started from here anyway. Volunteers most of the times were women who became governesses or nurses, and for the very first time, even doctors. In fact, we can remember Florence Nightingale, who was the first woman doctor, okay? And it was possible just because of this sort of a pact, just because of these actions, of this volunteering, and of this situation that created also a real development, okay, in some parts of society. So this is what Victorian Compromise is about. If you have any questions, any more questions, just leave me a comment below and I'll be glad to answer. Also, if you have any requests, I want to really thank you for your support that comes from all around the world, and it makes me really happy and proud, and I'm absolutely glad to be helpful. So thank you very much, and see you very soon with another video about English literature. Bye!